Hi, I'm Stu, and welcome back to another LumaFusion video tutorial. Today, I've got 5 tips for you that will improve your workflow, might even make you a better editor with LumaFusion. So let's get started. Okay, you know how when you tap on New Project, you get My Project, you can name the project, and then you get frame rate, frame aspect ratio, and the color space now. And it says based on first clip added. This is great if you edit lots of different video sort of setups in terms of you might shoot 120 frames a second, 60, 30, 24, that kind of thing. And at different aspect ratios, you might be capturing stuff with Instagram that's 9:16 or just traditional 16:9. Or like me, you tend to kind of stick towards 24 frames per second, 16:9, and the color space Rec 709. Well, if you go into your settings button down here on the bottom right hand corner, and then go to preferences, you've got an option for setting up new project defaults. So if you want a sort of baseline standard, then you can set it in here like so. There's your color space. But the key thing here is adjust based on first video clip added. Switch that little bad boy there off, and then you can back out and you tap on new project again. You'll now see your defaults are all set up. It's a lot faster if you're used to shooting whatever it is, 30 frames per second or 24 frames per second, or in my case 23.98 and 16:9. It's just whatever you're used to. Makes it a little bit faster for getting into a new project. Okay, now for my second tip. Now I'm going to use story blocks for this one. Obviously this applies to footage you've shot yourself as well. I just scanned through, we're in the technology section of story blocks, and I find a piece of footage that I want to use. Let's say this zoom in on blue female eye. Here's my tip for you. Watch the footage at least twice. Here's my reasoning while I play through this footage. You watch it once for an emotional response. So what do I mean by that? Well, you want to watch the footage to see how it makes you feel. This is particularly important for if you're editing for somebody else, or even if you're editing for yourself. You will have an emotional link to your footage. Something might have happened when you've been filming the video, and you want to be able to sort of detach yourself from the clip and watch it on an emotional level as if you are watching it for the first time. Watch it at least once for that, and then next watch it on a technical level. Is it exposed correctly? Is the color going to match in with the rest of your footage, especially if you're using stock? Is there any movement at the beginning of the footage that you need to sort of trim up? What's the piece within the footage that you want to actually use? For example, if we go, let's say, back from technology and we go into people, let's have a look here and look at young women. It's an 8-second clip, so it's not too long. We just play it through, see what's going on. I'm looking at it, we've got a bit of a sun flare, and it actually looks like there's a kind of dolly zoom effect going on. I would also say she is actually a still, oh no, there is a bit of movement, mind you. Kind of looks like it's a still that's been animated. Do I want this clip? No. So on an emotional level, I've rejected it already before we even get to the technical level. We then move along to, let's see, 3 handsome young men. Let's have a look at this clip. 22 seconds long. Again, just play it through. Just watch the clip, see what's going on. Chatting with each other. He moves his hand up to his head. He's laughing, so that's interesting. And he's putting his arm up, gesticulating, movement of some type. Everyone's to see what they're talking about. And he goes and touches his face, and I don't like that. So if we watch it again on a technical level, obviously he's moving his hands. Quite like it from this point onwards. So this is where having a notepad and pen and making a note of 4.12 in terms of 4 seconds, 12 frames is a good sort of in point. Don't lock in the in point using the I key just yet. Play it through. And he's laughing. How's the exposure? Well, it's a bit blown out at the background, but the faces are perfectly captured. Colours are not oversaturated or anything. It's just a good sort of stock clip which we can play around with and blend in their footage if we wanted. So there we go. So this time, on a third pass, I know I want to start my in point around about 4:12, yeah. I'll mark an in point in at that point. And then he's moving his hand up, he's moving his head round, he's laughing, he's good. Now I want to stop it before he starts to do his big gesticulation. I don't want that. I don't want his arms moving. I just quite like the emotional reaction. We'll put his hand back on his coffee, and we'll set our out point, and then we'll press W to load that clip in. So that's why you watch your videos at least twice. If you only watch it once and then you pick your in and out point, you might miss something, especially if you shot it yourself, because again, you have an emotional attachment to what you've been filming. You might have made a connection with a subject, that kind of thing. Something might have happened, and that might drive your sort of thought process into using a particular clip, which might be fun or might work well, or it might not. Watch your clips at least twice, and probably a third time before you actually choose an in and out point. Okay, my next tip relates to any of the sources of where you're going to get your video clips. I just happen to be in Storyblocks just now, but it could work to photos, frame.io, files, that kind of thing. We'll just stick with Storyblocks just now. I've obviously, from the previous tip, brought this 3 handsome young men chatting away clip, and you can see it's got a yellow marker where the in and out point is in the video. It's fine, well and good. But what if you're building a found footage sort of documentary and you want to research through all of the stock? How do you keep it organized? For example, here's another clip from the same shoot. And all I tend to do before I even bring it down onto the timeline is I mark the video clip with the first color purple. And then when I go to my view and sort, I choose the field color, and then I choose descending, and that means that once it's refreshed itself, that clip, although it's not been selected yet, jumps to the top and it's got a purple marker on it. Now, these do hang around, and I'm not sure the specific parameters of shutting down LumaFusion and opening back up, or logging in and out of Storyblocks, that kind of thing, to how long they stay there for, but I found that if I tend to sort of tag something with a colour, it hangs around for quite a bit unless I go down into my preferences and do a clean up on that. But don't hold me to that, because I have colour tagged stuff in the past and it's vanished. That's the first thing. And that's in case you are basically having to hunt through lots and lots of clips and you want to have them easily sorted up the top. To my next tip, and that is, once you've got a clip, you can actually go to these 3 dots up in the corner and you can click add to cached media. A lot of you think, and I've heard this in comments and stuff like that you have to basically bring the footage down on the timeline. Obviously, as per my previous clip, watch it at least twice or 3 times, finding the correct piece of footage that you want to use. But before you even get to all of that, if you want to bring the clip into LumaFusion just so that it's basically sitting there for you to then review and look at later on, you think you might use it, then you can just tap the 3 little dots and then add to cached media. What that does is, if you go back to Storyblocks and then down to the bottom, you'll see cached media, and you'll see I've actually got quite a few clips on the go here. And there we have 3 handsome men, and then 3 handsome men down here. And if I wanted to, I could set them up as blue to distinguish them and group them together, and then all I've got to do is go in and just juggle this about, just sits them nicely there. That's another option for you in terms of bringing the footage into LumaFusion, so that when you go into cached media later on, you can tap on the footage, press play, and watch it through at least twice. Once on an emotional level once again, and then on a technical level, and then on the third pass you then want to probably place your in and out points. And you can do that by dragging, or you can swipe back, press play. We like that reaction there. So even if we press J and go back a little bit, stop it about there, play it through again, I can then drop my in point. I've actually watched this footage about 4 or 5 times, and I like that reaction there. That's where we can stop and end it, do our out point, and then that's then ready for you to drag into your timeline at some point later on. Or if we just highlight it, press W, drags it in. And if we play the sequence through, again, you might trim this stuff down and just tighten up a little bit, but you can see how it's starting to work, come together. Okay, for my final tip today, we're going to talk transitions. And I'm just going to use these 2 clips again. I'm seeing as they're on my timeline already. Now, I should preface this by saying I tend to just use cuts. The only time I tend to use the sort of fancier transitions, I might sometimes use dip to black, or maybe the flash option, zoom blur, and if I go down a bit further, cross zoom the odd time. Generally though, I tend to use it on like text and graphics and things like that. But sometimes a video requires a little slide left, slide right. So let's talk about that for a second. And this obviously applies to any of the other transitions. If let's say we are sliding left, I bring that down into my video. The first thing you'll notice is that the transition is a bit shorter than 1 second. And that's because I've gone into my clip defaults and reduced the transition. And sometimes I even bring it down to half a second, just 12 frames effectively. But I tend to start off at 20, but I find that 1 full second is just 2 seconds, it's just that too long. So I start with basically 20 frames. So the slide comes in, it comes in from the right to the left, which makes sense. But here's a problem, or what potentially could be a problem. If you then want to bring it back to the right, you would automatically think you would choose slide right at the back end. But the problem with doing that is it's actually counterintuitive. It keeps going to the left because it's revealing the clip underneath on the right. So if you want that clip to go to the left and then back to the right, you don't choose slide right, you actually go back to slide to the left. Then the clip will go back the way because it's revealing the clip underneath from the left. So it's a bit counterintuitive. It's something that tripped me up when I started using LumaFusion. In the same way that, I'll just take that transition away, and we go for slide down again, sliding down. That clip's revealed. And then we want to reveal this clip, so we choose sliding down again. I'll slide down again for it to go back up. We don't want to use slide up because that will actually push it down because it's revealing the clip below. You kind of get your head around that one. You want to basically use the same transition in and out, and you've got a singular clip that has a hard ending on it like this. So again, slide down and it will go back up. So there you go. That's my 5 tips for you today. Hope you enjoyed them. Mainly set up for people who are just new to obviously LumaFusion and haven't quite got to grips with the app fully, but maybe you've been using it for a while and you haven't thought about or used some of these tips yet, and it's just maybe giving you a little helping hand. And I will catch you on the next video. Bye.